Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Coffee in the Barn with Morgan and Casey. This week we have the pleasure of speaking with Kaylee Keppy McDonnell, who works with Zinpro and helps sponsor and organize the Elevate Women in Ag event that was hosted for the first time ever at World Pork Expo.
In last week's episode, Morgan and I gave our highlights from attending the event, and we have exciting news. After Kaylee's fun interview here shortly, we are going to have next week's episode featuring Casey Boyles from the event as a keynote speaker. So welcome, Kaylee.
Well, thanks for having me back on the podcast, ladies. It's good to see your faces.
Definitely. Can you get, obviously we introduced World Pork Expo, and I heard from some of the attendees that they signed up because they heard us on Coffee in the Barn.
Yes. I'm grateful we could get the word out. It was a great turnout. Obviously, we hope, more and more people hear about it and we can do something again next year. But yeah, grateful you guys shared the story and got the message out there about our first Elevate Women in Ag event.
Can you kind of give us the statistics, being the little scientific nerd here, and understand how many women and that kind of stuff and some feedback?
Yeah, so we had just shy of 50 women sign up for the event, and some, last minute had some meetings come up. Of course, during the World Pork Expo, we all know that those things happen and those things come up. But man, it was such a good turnout as far as the right people were there, the right conversations were had. I just felt like it was overall a good turnout for our first event.
I was going to say the post-media content from the event, like, wow.
Yes.
So can you kind of walk us through, if people didn't get to attend, where is some of these articles being published? I know Jennifer Scheich wrote one article.
Yeah, Jennifer Scheich has now come out with a couple different articles. One just highlighting the event, and then the other one she dove into just some content from some of the guest speakers and panel guests that we had there, as far as some valuable takeaways and tips and some things to take home and maybe implement in your work-life balance. So yeah, it was, she's got some marketing around it. I know people from Zinpro have shared, but yeah, it was heavily shared on social media, and I really appreciate that. But I think people genuinely wanted to share their experience of the event, and that is certainly something I'm thankful for, and thankful for the women that are sharing and spreading the word about Elevate Women in Ag.
Based on the people that I saw at the event, as well as some of the articles that I've read afterwards, it kind of broke down that there was people, I shouldn't say people, the women that attended the event were in a lot of different stages of their lives, whether that was right away, just had babies, or they're in like the, preteen era, or their kids are older, or their kids are out of the house. Were you able to get kind of a grasp on the survey afterwards on like what percentage of women were represented by those different areas?
Yeah, so that's a great observation and a great question. And I do think that was some feedback that we did get back. A lot of the panelists are moms. So naturally we talk about mom life, and we had folks from all different seasons of life. So I think finding that balance of, everyone's in a different season was definitely talked about, but maybe we could spend a little more time in one area versus another. But I think all in all, broke down into a variety of seasons. But it was great for the younger folks to have folks in a different season, maybe the mom or post-mom life. Their kids are graduated and those kind of things. So I think there was a lot of conversation, no matter what season of life people were in. They had access to talk about or share experiences or what have you.
I was going to say, even Zach had some good questions and
Yes.
feedback as a guy there.
Yes, absolutely. And he kind of, from the other point of view, he's like, man, there's a lot of things, as a guy, you just don't think about, right? Like you just don't think about those kind of things. So I think it was very eye-opening.
I know so I was only able to attend the Monday night social, but I really enjoyed the speaker that we had that spoke on the House of Color. And from that, I haven't gotten my colors done, but I'm hoping to in the future. Have you ever gotten your colors done?
I have not, and I wish I had more time during Expo to get my colors done with Crystal, because not only is she good with style and all of that, but just tying it together, colors, style, work, and how to put that together for a certain event. I am wanting to get my colors done for sure. But I really felt Crystal did a really good job of tying in topics that maybe we just don't take time to think about or talk about or do because we're so busy in our day-to-day activity, that it was kind of nice just to sit back and see how different things are put together and what works on different body styles and types and colors, and
or even just the simple tips and tricks of like wearing lipstick.
Yes.
Or things you don't think about, of like wearing bracelets or things that accentuate the skinniest part of your body, which is your wrists and your ankles.
Right. Yeah. Or just having that staple blazer in your closet, as kind of, a staple piece. Or what did she say? Red is the most universal color for everyone.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, learning
has to be the right shade of red.
Yes.
I was going to say the primary red is universal for everybody, I do believe. I think the other shades of red goes into your color family, but I think she gave me permission to dress more feminine. And since World Pork Expo, I have bought some new clothes. Obviously, I haven't had my color done, but I was very proud. Iowa Swine Day, I put a blazer on because I'm going to be taken more seriously.
Good.
But even with my blazer, I had a feminine outfit on, and I just felt totally different. And I think in agriculture, the type of work we do and the type of work I've done in my life hasn't lent itself favorable to being feminine and nice, and you can't wear high heels and take care of pigs or something and do chores, even though I have not successfully well, but I can. But I think that from Crystal's talk gave me a license to be more me.
I love that, because I do think in our industry we are so, it's like tradition to kind of wear the same thing over and over again, or be in our little safe circle, right, of what we wear. And a polo collared shirt is kind of the staple for everyone. And again, I'm glad we kind of, as women, had that moment to now we have permission to go ahead and do that. Who sets those rules? Nobody really. So
the marketing department.
Yeah, let's go ahead and break those barriers, if you will. So yeah, because I think truly when it comes down to it, look good, feel good, do good, right?
Yeah. So obviously I've coached you and I've gotten to know you throughout this last year. I'm curious, hosting the event and planning it and doing all that, what has that done in your mind, for your confidence, your professional growth, personal growth? Kind of how's that empowered you, or elevated you, I should say, to go with the theme?
Yeah, it's been such a rewarding experience to connect with women individually, right? To reach out to all these women, ask them to be on the panel, get to know them on a little deeper level. And just in general has been such a rewarding experience to take an idea, put it together, and see it come to life, and then be rewarding for other women like yourselves. This is what I gained from this event. This is what I learned from the event. That in itself to me is just a sense of accomplishment, right? And just overall, like I said, very rewarding. From a professional development standpoint, it has broadened my network tremendously, from the marketing side of it, from just touching base with people like Morgan, right? Or being able to have a conversation on a different level, right? We know each other a little better. Have more of those meaningful conversations outside of just work. So from a professional standpoint, just overall growth outside. Kaylee works for Zinpro. So
Do you have
it has, yeah.
deeper appreciation for the marketing team in your company?
Absolutely. I couldn't have done it without Rachel Summers and some of the marketing team at Zinpro, and just the fact that Zinpro allowed us to take an idea like this and bring it to life, to work for a company that, you know, believes in empowering women, empowering people, and giving us that platform to do so.
So I think this year was such a success. So how do you step up your game per se for next year? Like I'm sure you're already kind of, the wheels are turning and you're starting to plan or think of speakers or themes or whatnot. Do you have any like insight you can give us on?
Oh, Morgan, that's a tough question. You know, after an event like that, you sit back and you go, okay, what went well? What could we do better? What can we do next time to encourage more women to show up? You know, you kind of go through your list. We sent out a survey with some feedback. So that's super helpful. But yeah, we're open to ideas. We're open to, you know, we're very open at this point. So I know we're a year out, but any ideas would be great. But yeah, thinking of bigger and better. How can we do bigger and better?
I was going to say to throw this out to you, and I think there's other companies who want to do this. So I'm not sure it has to just be the Zinpro event in the future. Sure. I think so many people are like, hey, we needed this. I didn't hear about this. I wanted to go. And, you know, I think bigger and better is how big we want to dream. Mm-hmm. And if this is your passion, I really think it can grow. One of my questions I have, because obviously Morgan couldn't attend the entire event and she wasn't the only one, right? Because we had business commitments. But what is the thoughts on doing it outside of events so the women can actually come to maybe like a central location like Des Moines and invest in themselves without having to worry about, does it conflict with my other business priorities of the week?
Yeah, and I would say that that has been a topic of conversation, and a very good point. You know, we originally sent out just a survey just to kind of get an idea if this was a good, you know, to see if people would be interested first and foremost. So tying it to an event like Expo, where we know women were going to be in attendance, was kind of our first thought. Let's try it this year. And that's one of those ideas where the wheels are turning, the wheels are spinning. But then we also have folks on the other side of the fence who say, I'm a mom. I'm already committed to a week at World Pork Expo and I'm already gone. So let's make it happen during World Pork Expo when I'm already gone for that week. So I think you get a little torn. Now, could there be some follow-up activity after an event like that? Maybe, say, centrally located? Potentially. You know, tossing around some ideas on what follow-up looks like from an event like this.
What are your thoughts, Morgan? Because I'm torn both ways too. As a mom, I don't, you know, travel is precious and away from home is hard. I mean, what is your thoughts on future follow-up activities? What sparked things in you from the event?
Yeah, I really wish I was able to have joined on that Tuesday for the full day. I mean, whether there was a way to, I don't know, have virtual content available for the people that necessarily can't attend in person so that they can still at least like grasp the the information that is being provided and at least be able to learn more about the speakers and the different topics that were available. I think that would have been, that's one area possibly.
Yeah,
I do think it would be very difficult. And I would say I'm torn both ways as well, as, you know, if you had, say, like, if it was still World Pork Week, but you had everyone come in like Sunday night and then had the event on Monday, you know, it's still back and forth. Even though I wasn't able to be there, or maybe that's even starting it earlier on Monday.
right.
Like, Monday's already travel day for most people. So instead of leaving at 4 p.m., maybe people leave at noon.
Right.
Or, you know, just shift their schedule by 4 or 5 hours. And then maybe that's a way to kind of accommodate happy medium type thing. But yeah, I really think trying to do it outside of World Pork Week might get to be a little difficult.
Yep, that was a lot of the feedback we got. You know, what makes sense, what's practical, and, you know, in our busy lives, and we're already traveling. Yeah, so that's probably where, you know, you get a little torn, because you do have people like Casey mentioned, you know, like to hone in and just focus on this. But again, the work-life balance, right? So we try to figure it out for majority.
I'm asking because based on your interactive workshop with Working Genius, obviously I did not sit with people who I work with. I sat
Right.
with a friend and the people I knew, right? But I don't know them that well.
Yep.
And that interactive learning component has really driven a change in my plans of my training programs I'm putting together. I'm going to offer the option of a hybrid 100, you know, recorded material and a virtual workshop, but I'm also putting in there a day-long workshop for the interactive components, or a 2-day where you don't watch videos on the content. We do both in 2 days. I'm curious the response I'm going to get, because I can tell you from an educator and a facilitator that interactive lesson was probably the best opportunity for us to work with others and work with people who we normally don't. So ideas or how we approached the challenge, because we had I think plan a marketing event in the workshop, and where keys were missing on your team. And I thought not only going through that with a team that I don't work with on a daily basis was awesome, but then hearing it was the same activity for everybody else, but different approaches and different things, and how they took the learning. And I would think that interactive training in small groups and breakouts is so essential to education and learning. And obviously we're there for professional development, but I feel like that's almost necessary in the majority of conferences and meetings we have now, to okay, we just got all this great information that Casey gave us, but what does it mean? And I think maybe for the future of everything, even in our industry, to think more about interactive workshops and purposely putting people with people they don't work with every day, to just hear new ideas. And that was another from the day 2 takeaway for me, was very essential of my business models changing, and I would prefer to do in-person workshops on the education front, because new ideas come out and you learn from different people in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What was your overall thoughts on the Working Genius portion of the event?
I have made every one of my employees take it. So I've paid for them to take it. Obviously, I did not retake it because I took it with you. I have my results. From a leadership perspective, it made me realize what we're missing on the team. And I like the idea as well. Maybe that's what we outsource. And it actually brought me clarity, because we were changing our business model, because I don't I like the challenge of going to get new business. I like bringing a new product to market. But once it's in the market and established, I don't get as lit on fire. And going through the Working Genius, it told me why. And it told me that I was probably on the right path of how I'm changing my business model, right? Yep. And help more upfront bring the solutions and seeing if they work or not. And understanding that's my zone of genius. And then, you know, on my team, I have people who have my weaknesses a little bit more, which is good, right?
Yeah.
But I think that was, I've taken a lot of personality tests and stuff. And, you know, looking at somebody who does continuing education, professional development, mentoring as a part of my life and who I am, out of all of them, I think that was the most important one, and it should be done like when you're a high school age.
Yeah. Yep.
Be like, what are you going to enjoy doing, and how can you take, say, I love animals, and when I was in high school, I thought just being a veterinarian was the only way I could go to college and work with animals. Well, if I would have had that Working Genius done, I could have had somebody, a career counselor, say, well, no, definitely being an animal scientist, researcher is probably where you want to be at.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I got there in the long run, but imagine if I would have had that mindset as a senior getting ready to go to Michigan State for my undergrad, of how I would have set up my program differently and things. And so that was my biggest thing. I've been recommending it to other people every time I have other people wanting to take it. And I was talking to an old client about it, and I said, I think, and we left on good terms, but it wasn't an part of the industry I really wanted to work in at the time. And I said, I think I know why we probably weren't successful for each other as much as I hoped. And that's because we were all too much alike. I would imagine if we took this test, we'd find out we're probably over here at the innovator side, all of us. Sure. And we didn't have any cheerleaders or tenacity people pushing us.
Well, it was so funny how that came to life. So putting the panel together, and one of the panelists is Kaylee Denise she's originally from Colorado, lives in Oklahoma, works for Oklahoma Pork. And she's been, I've known her since college. We went to Blackhawk Junior College together and have always looked up to her and admired her. And she was sharing a little insight on what they do with their team and how they all bring their Working Genius out every time they have a new project. So who's really good at this? Who's good at that? Let's assign this. You're going to be assigned with her. So she was sharing information about that. Then I knew it was really meant to be a part of the program when I mentioned it to our keynote speaker, Casey, who you guys will have next week on the podcast. And she said, I am trained in Working Genius as a facilitator. So then at that point, I just knew it was totally meant to be, that needed to be a part of our program. And she's very knowledgeable and super educated in the Working Genius. But I loved how light that assessment was. And again, like Casey was saying, it's very, brings awareness around kind of some strengths, weaknesses, what you're good at, those kind of things. So I would encourage majority of teams in the professional world to take that assessment for sure. I think it, like you said, can enlighten you on why maybe some things don't work, or jihad maybe near as well, and why you work better with others. So yeah, I think there's some good insight there, and some key takeaways from that Working Genius. I'm glad you found a lot of value in it, Casey.
I did, and I appreciate Zinpro.
When you go through taking those personality tests and whatnot, it's interesting to see, at different stages of your career or different stages of your life, how most of the time it doesn't really change, because it's just kind of true to who you are. But in some areas you might get like stronger and weaker depending on your skill set or whatever your job might be at that time. That might help enlighten those different areas that might not have been a strength or weakness before.
Yep, absolutely.
And the only thing I think we're missing out in all these tests, because I'll use the example when I went to Colmback, after my undergrad, I took the personality test. They make all their new hires go through it. And then I took it again when I got hired as a PhD animal scientist. And they said my personality is very rare, that it totally changed. And I looked at my life experiences, in between there, and I would call myself more adaptable. And I think some of these tests yet don't show us if we're adaptable in certain areas. And I've always tried to use my weaknesses. I want to be consciously aware of that, or things I don't like to do, but always work on how can I overcome that. Now as a leader, who can I can pull on in my weaknesses, and things like that. And so it's just being consciously aware and knowing that, and you can take the mindset, well, this is who I am, and they're just going to have to deal with it. Or, hey, I know I'm weak here, but I can overcome that weakness with this strength. And I think that's the key takeaway, where sometimes it makes it sound like, oh man, we got to change our management structure, we got to hire differently, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's just, how are you open about working with people and having your team being adaptable and mindful of who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things I really like about the Working Genius. Maybe you can get them to sponsor you too.
Oh, maybe I could become a licensed facilitator or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I think it's kind of nice because it doesn't say, Kylie and I were talking about it, and she's like, it's kind of nice. It doesn't say like, you're not good at this. This is just the stuff that, tires
really good at.
Or here's the stuff you're really good at, but here's the stuff maybe we can work on, but here's the stuff that's just too much for you, at this time. Like you had mentioned, it's just it's not a, hey, you suck at this. I mean, and just putting it bluntly, but it's kind of like, here's your strengths, here's what you can work on, and here's the stuff that just drains you.
Yeah, we had to take some personality tests internally within Alltech earlier this year too, and it's not something that you always think about, right, or that you can like, you know who you are and like the way that you do things, but when you get like a specific word put to that action, or like you're like, oh, I always do this, but here's a specific word to describe that, it kind of enlightens it a little bit and makes you a little bit more aware. And I think it's always something to just kind of have in the back of your mind, or just even like review. Like every year, everyone's working on their New Year's resolutions, or, we're 6 months into 2024 now. Like, what have you accomplished since the beginning of the year? And I think it's just one of those things that as you're personally growing or professionally developing, you should just look and review at those things just to kind of refresh your mind about it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea.
Well, anything else that you want to highlight, Kaylee, from the event? Are you planning content? I gave your boss some ideas for homework for Kaylee, but
oh, good. Yeah, so we have some ideas in the works here in the next couple months on potentially some follow-up activity. So I will leave you with that little tidbit. Just to highlight the overall event, it was so good to see so many powerful and influential and just lady leaders in general just come together and have good, genuine conversation. It wasn't about work. And Casey, you can attest, it wasn't a lot about, how do you do this? It was just, how do we balance it? How do we, strategically spend time where we need to spend time and do all the things, right? So, and I'm sure Casey will dive a little more into that next week, but I think we had an awesome panel, and I may be biased, but I thought we had just 4 amazing ladies that were an open book and all excel in their careers and all excel as moms and all excel and yet they were just so vulnerable and open on some things. So I'm just, again, it was a very rewarding experience, and I'm thankful for the event. I'm thankful for the follow-up and the marketing afterwards, but that truly people took something away from that they can use in their everyday lives. That is was my ultimate goal for the event.
Yeah, I would just evaluate, we're 6 months, almost 8 months. Well, no, we're way past 6 months. We're almost 8 months into the year. When at the time of recording this, I guess maybe just evaluate where you originally thought you were going to be at the beginning of the year and see how currently where you're at professionally, personally right now, and how that corresponds to 6 months ago or even a year ago, and see what things you might need to put in place to either get back on track to where you want to be or choose a different direction and reevaluate in the next couple of months.
And as a good example, if you remember from our goal setting our goal setting podcast, when I were beginning episodes, I said I was going to run a 5K, Morgan. I got clearance from the doctor, my foot doctor, that I can. So I'm still going to achieve that. I may be behind on my goal, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to find it, even if it's on like New Year's Eve. I'm going to get it done this year.
You can do it.
So great. Thank you, Kaylee, for being back on the Coffee in the Barn.
Yes, anytime. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it. And hopefully we can look forward to Elevate Women in Ag 2.0.